Right, now key stakeholders in Southern Africa's ICT and telecom sectors, including government, technology companies and international partners, have gathered in Cape Town for the 2025 SATNAC conference. The Southern Africa Telecommunication Networks and Applications Conference is held under the theme Africa's Ascent towards a sustainable and resilient future, enabled by secure next-generation infrastructure, digital technology and artificial intelligence. This is where we find SABC News economics reporter Katlego, who's at the conference. A very good afternoon to you, Katlego. As stakeholders gather under one roof, what can we expect from the conference in the coming days?
A very good afternoon to you, Mpo, and to our viewers at home, coming to you through a rolling of those conversations that started from very early in the morning to where you find us this afternoon, this becoming the SATNAC 2025. When you look at it, Mpo, this becomes the longest running ICT and research seminar that will bring together some of these role players year in and year out. We see technology just at the center of where we find ourselves, with some of those role players that have come into Hermanus in the Western Cape for these high-level discussions, coming through also at a time, Mpo, when we see government working to ensure that the white paper and legislation around AI is something that is championed here, as we see earlier on the Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Monitoring, Planning and Evaluation, Sello Mmakau, delivering a keynote address here, just giving some of the role players just an update in terms of where we find ourselves with the legislation. But this afternoon also seeing some of the students that are here showcasing the innovation and the high-level discussions looking at the challenges that we already have on the ground, some of them long-standing challenges of the digital divide, access to infrastructure where digital transformation is concerned, but also policy to ensure that there are safeguards where some of these threats coming from technological advancement are concerned. The digital economy, where do we place that in terms of moving the country, but not just the country, Mpo, the continent and the globe as well, as we look at this SATNAC conference as being a Southern African conference. I'm going to bring into the conversation with us this afternoon the host, this being Telkom. You've invited us here. You have academics of excellence that are scattered across the country as well, and we see the CEO earlier on as well, just giving us a sense of 27 years of SATNAC and Telkom in ensuring that we have these high-level discussions. Earlier on, pulling you out of the discussion, the panel discussion that looked at various of these issues, access to finance, collaboration, and just ensuring that no one is left behind. So these conversations become very important. Sello, welcome to the SABC.
Thank you very much. Thanks for hosting us, and thank you to the viewers as well. I think this year's SATNAC was quite unique because we really focused on digital inclusion, building sustainable solution, especially for underdeserved communities, because there are still a lot of barriers that they're facing, issues around electrification, issues around affordability and access. And we've got a lot of industries that are here, from financial services, the government, the telcos. And we felt that the convergence of telcos and financial services, which is connectivity and access to finance, when you converge that, you're able to address the issues that the communities in rural areas are facing. And I think one of the things that came out of this is that, for us to be able to address that, we need to collaborate as different stakeholders, both public sector and private sector. For Telkom, we provide connectivity, access to data, and that makes sure that the people in rural areas are able to access financial services easy. They can transact. They don't have to travel for long distances just to do banking, and that's very, very important. But what is also critical is the fact that we are addressing the issue around the data sovereignty, data privacy, and the cyber security, because we still have people that are skeptical to be able to share their data online. And that is something that we really address quite extensively today.
Yeah, and also when you look at it, I mean, it's disheartening to hear that only 30% on the continent would be connected. In terms of the ramped up infrastructure, that becomes important, so as to ensure that we close the gaps and no one is left behind. Where are we?
It's even worse, because if you go to rural areas, it's actually 23%. That's even worse. So what we are doing now, we've actually started a lot of programs in Telkom through the open side, which is a fiber business, where we actually go into rural areas and make sure that we connect those and that is one of the areas where we can really bridge the digital divide. And I think this is also the collaboration with other industries to make sure that, from power point of view and electricity, you've got those that are coming to the party and make sure that there is electricity, because without that, even if you have connectivity, you still have got challenges in terms of making sure that you can be able to, do all the transactions that anyone in the urban area is doing. Adding to that, again, you bring the banks, which are here, the insurance industry, which are here, and together this form a very super group that is able to address the issue around the digital divide that you see in the communities.
And just before we let you go as well, Sello, I mean, we saw the Deputy Minister here talking about legislation in terms of where we find ourselves as a country. There's that white paper that has been spoken of for the longest of time, and we see him at least saying it's through cabinet and there'll be an opportunity for public participation. How important is it that we get the legislation and the policy right in safeguarding the space, but at the same time, you role players adding your voice in terms of ensuring that this particular legislation is not lost?
Absolutely, and I think the issue around the regulatory framework is a very important aspect, because the pace of AI accelerating at a way that we are not able to keep up as industries, and it's very important because the framework actually are the guardrails for people to be able to use AI in an ethical way, because AI can be also useful, but it can also be destructive. We need to put together policies and framework, and that legislation or the framework that you're talking about is very critical, so that it can be everybody can use to align, so that as we execute and implement solutions, we do them in an ethical way without creating destruction within our companies.
Awesome. Sello Mmakau, thank you very much for giving us your time. Sello coming through as the Group Chief Digital Officer here at Telkom, and you hear him talking about how important this conversation become moving us into the future. At the same time, this coinciding with World AIDS Day, and this is where some of those role players that are here, they are looking at ensuring that there is technological tapping into. We tap into technology to ensure that it creates solutions where some of these complex matters are concerned. Back to you in studio for now.
Thank you very much, Katlego Legodi, out at the SATNAC conference, giving us some insight on some of the developments there. And of course, World AIDS Day coming under the spotlight in a short while.